Right, ladies and gentlemen, shall we be seated and begin? Right. Good evening to you all, first of all. I can't reach these damn things. Right, the first question I have is anybody feeling hot? Otherwise, can we turn the air conditioning off? Because it's certainly blowing straight onto my head. Does anybody technically know how to do that? I think so, yes. I'll get one with a little pom-pom on the top. Would be rather nice, wouldn't it? Right, next thing to say is that this meeting is being webcast, though I gather we're still using the pilot computer system, which means that it doesn't move around automatically each time somebody speaks, so that it's only the full cabinet view, and I'm afraid the back of the head of the visiting speaker, but I can't fix things like that, so that's what I know. It's a great lacking in my part. Next thing is to just remind you of the fire evacuation procedures. So those of you who were here yesterday afternoon will know we actually had one and went out into the park. There are none scheduled for this evening. As far as I know, there's no pretend one scheduled either. So if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building. The exits are located at the rear and side of this room that's down there and over that end, and go down the stairs, not the lift, and meet in War Memorial Park. And finally, could I ask everybody if they can put their mobile phones to silent for the course of the meeting? It'd be very helpful. Apologies for absence. We have two apologies for absence from Councillor Jayawardena and Councillor Isett. Declarations of interest, I think we have one, which is from Councillor Osselton on the SIL paper, because she sits on the Manydown Committee, and a SIL may have implications for Manydown. Therefore, those involved in the land ownership will be excluded for that particular item. Any other ones, members? Good. Petitions we have none. Urgent items we have none. So I missed the minutes of the Cabinet meeting of 31st of July. Does anybody have any points they wish to raise on those minutes? Nope. Nope. In which case I will sign those later on. And we can move to the appointment to the Project Integra Management Board. We need to appoint a main and deputy representative, and I have Councillor Eachus as the main representative and Councillor Osselton as the deputy representative. Are we happy with that? Agreed? Good. Thank you very much. So we move to the first paper of the evening, which is paper B, on future cemetery provision, the way forward. We have three speakers on this. They are three gentlemen there, and in order on my list it's Councillor Harvey, followed by Councillor Keating, followed by Councillor Regan. So Regan, sorry, apologise. As soon as I said it, I knew I got it wrong. Yes, it is probably. So Councillor Harvey, if you'd like to come forward, and I will ask Councillor Eachus to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Leader. This is a report to consider the future cemetery provision for the borough and the way forward. Just briefly, a bit of background. This borough only has around 5.5 years worth left of capacity at the current cemetery at Worthing Road, so we do need to find another site. We don't have to find another site, but this council did agree that it would be the best thing for the residents of Basingstoke and Dean that the council do become involved, and feasibility work was therefore carried out to identify possible sites. This matter did come to committee a week or so ago, and that's all dealt with in the paper. The North Waltham site has been identified as one of the best sites, not least because it's got longevity. It has around 90 years worth of capacity, which some of the other sites didn't have. It also allows for woodland burials if necessary. I am well aware, following the public consultation of the views that were sought in 2013, that one of the main issues with this site is how far it is away from the town and therefore the travel to the site. But I did make clear at committee and make clear again now that transport to the site will be looked at. It is top of my agenda. It will be constantly reviewed. This site will not be used until 2019, so I can't promise what the transport will be at that time, but it's certainly top of the agenda to be looked at. And one of the recommendations on the paper is to allow £15,000 revenue allowance each year from 2018-19 for the provision of any taxi share or car share scheme. This isn't ruling out buses or any other option, because they will also be looked at, but that's just one of the proposals. So I make the recommendation as per the amended decision notice.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. What I wanted to say related specifically to what Councillor Reaches has just said, really, and thank her for considering the issues around public transport, because I do think that is the one main core issue that falls out of a choice of the site of North Waltham. Took the bus on Friday myself, went down to the railway station and got on the number 55 bus, which is the only bus that goes to North Waltham. Goes twice a day, Monday to Friday, doesn't go at weekends. There's no public transport at all to get out there on a weekend. 8:12 in the morning or 2:52 in the afternoon. So you are out there for most of the day or into the evening waiting for the bus to come the other way to take you back. Takes you about half an hour to get to the village pond. You're dropped off at the village pond. The issue that I saw straight away and that experienced while walking to the cemetery site was that it is up country lanes with no pathways. It's down roads leading to the A road, where anybody with accessibility issues or mobility issues would really struggle. It is not something in any way, shape or form as a site that I would class as being accessible by public transport. So that presents a very serious issue, I think, for a number of people, the significant number of people who would use public transport to get to the town cemetery. I think the criticisms raised in the consultant's report on that regard are something that we should pay attention to. It was one of the major criticisms that Upson McGugan raised of the North Waltham site, was its remoteness, and that is a word I would most definitely use. The other aspect, I guess, is if we're going to go down the road of looking to a site and then spending the best part of £3 million putting it together and creating this site, and that's what the report here says would be the overall cost if it went through in that way, then it needs to be the right site. So should we be spending up to £3 million on North Waltham? I recognise the decision notice raises the point about other sites, and I welcome that, but other sites will be examined. And I do look to the Cabinet member to give the assurance of that tonight. I read it in the decision notice, that they'll be worked up concurrently with North Waltham, so alongside, so that we will see a presentation of not just the planning application and what you're proposing for North Waltham, but also all of the other sites that were raised. We'll actually see them properly investigated, properly looked at, and we as backbench councillors will have the opportunity, I hope, to see the evaluation of that and the feasibility of that, so that we can judge alongside everybody else what I hope you will see, which is there could be and should be, we hope, better options than North Waltham. I just think it's the wrong site. I mean, honestly, getting there on Friday afternoon and thinking how in the world you're going to get down there as an older resident or a resident with mobility issues, it was just impossible. And then out onto the A road, because there was no pathway. So the speed of the traffic coming past you on the A road, you either turn left to go down to the pub or turn right to go up to the crematorium. And it literally was the cars coming past you with no pathway to walk on except the verge. That is just nonsensical. So if we're going to bring this forward, we've got to think these things through. And in that regard, the bus is important. So I guess my final point to the Cabinet member is I'd really like an assurance this evening that as a fundamental part of this proposal, if you really choose to go ahead with it, and I hope you don't, I'd love you not to go ahead with North Waltham. I would love for us to work together to find another site. But if you do, I would like a commitment that there will be a public transport option, not a car share, not a taxi share, but a proper public transport option that residents can rely on, and that we will give a commitment to subsidise that if we're going to go ahead with North Waltham. And I did know that that bus route actually at the moment is under direct threat of stopping altogether. It's Newbury District that are running it, and it is under threat because the only reason it's in existence is that it's a school route. So the school funding is critical to that bus route, even for the residents of North Waltham, let alone if you put a future cemetery there. I hope you can appreciate those points constructively and that we can work together on this.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Perfectly timed. I think almost stretching it out for the last 5 seconds there. Councillor Eatis, do you want to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I think the first point is transport, which I raised in my opening remarks. I can make a commitment that we are seeing transport as top of the agenda. I cannot make a commitment that public transport will be, that a bus service will be available. This is some 5.5 years away, and I cannot say what's going to happen then. But I fully appreciate that transport is an issue. We're trying to deal with that by suggesting the £15,000, but I'm not saying that's it. I'm not just saying we're going to put £15,000 revenue and that's it. This is something that will be constantly looked at and is top of the agenda if this site is to go ahead. As regards the issues with you saying country lanes, no pathways, etc., and the concerns of accessing the site, then again, all of that will be taken on board, and that will obviously be part of the planning process. And if the site gets planning permission, all of that can be dealt with as part of that. And I can ensure that that's looked at. And yeah, again, it was mainly the transport, so I can give a commitment that that is top of the agenda, but I can't promise what that will be, but it's certainly being looked into.
You're not actually allowed one, but I will allow you one very quickly.
It was just the point about the other sites in terms of the examination
That
of
was,
them.
yes, sorry,
And
to that point.
Before you bring forward the planning app, if members can see the other evaluation before you get that far, I think that would be very healthy.
So the supplementary report deals with most of the other sites that were dealt with at committee, and why some of them it's not even worth considering them. But the other ones, we do say in the decision notice that these will be looked at. And it says if outline planning permission is granted for the North Waltham site, and in the event that the other potential sites are feasible within the required timescales, then those sites will be brought back to the committee, if on the basis it's 2.1.5 of the decision notice.
Thank you very much. Councillor Keating. What do I press? I've done that. Good evening.
Good evening.
4 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. What I said at the committee really was that I find it incredible that any organisation which owns 800 acres of land on the edge of town would commit to spending £500,000 to buying 15 acres of inaccessible land outside of town for the purpose of a cemetery. If you look at the report, item B, page 3.10, item 4.2, it's 12 of 219 or 3 of 10. When it talks about the principal alternative site for a cemetery in Basingstoke, it talks about Mandydown. We own the land, we bought it, and it's not built on. Now, the reason, apparently, according to the report, that we cannot consider it is that there is a draft illustrative master plan. So it's not a plan, it's just a draft illustrative plan. Now, that to my mind says everything is up for grabs in terms of how we use Mandydown, but we would obviously want to use it effectively. But any plan that is in just picture form and is draft is very capable of being amended, adjusted, altered, improved, so that you could, if you wished, use part of it for a cemetery. And if you used part of it for a cemetery, and if you put the cemetery next to an urban centre, which is part of the overall plan, you would actually be putting it within reach of an existing bus service, which would inevitably be part of the Mandydown development arrangements. So you'd eliminate the issues of transport, you'd eliminate the issues of feasibility, you'd eliminate the issues of costs, and we would have an effective not 90 years availability, we would actually have 999 years availability. So I urge you to reconsider the issue of Mandy-Down, because it is possible, it is realistic, it is financially better, and it's certainly on a bus route if you choose to put it near one of the urban centres. But other than that, I have got nothing to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richards?
Thank you, Councillor Keating. I think the first thing to make clear is you started off by saying we own 800 acres of land on the edge of town. We don't own that outright. There's two other landowning interests that would have to agree to that. And, you know, we would work with them. And in the supplementary report, we do deal with Mandy-Down, and I do make a commitment in the decision notice that the officers will look into the different areas of Mandy-Down as to whether they are feasible. But we have got to approach the other two landowners, and it's all very well saying it would give 999 years of availability. Well, that would be nearly possible. I don't know, I haven't worked it out, but the reason they say 90 years on 15 acres is because of they've worked out on statistics the amount of bodies that would be buried there. So 99 years may be nearly all of Mandy-Down, which just wouldn't be feasible. And then you say it's financially better, but Mandy-Down set aside for housing, and if we put a cemetery there, the loss of opportunity costs would be probably a great deal more than it would be than buying the land at North Waltham site. So as the report states, and as set out in the decision notice, the different areas of Mandy-Down mentioned will be looked at, and the other landowners will be approached. So it's not being ruled out totally.
If I may, I certainly don't believe it. Thank you.
Well, that's a pity, but I'm not sure there's much else one can do except state the case. But Councillor Regan? Done it again. And good evening to you. When you're ready? Yep.
I think this is the first time I spoke to the Cabinet since coming back onto the Council, I think. So you show the issue is close to my heart. Unsurprisingly, I'm going to talk about the buses. And I leave the location of the arguments where it goes to others. I think Councillor Harvey said most that I wanted to say, but I just add that if you do look at North Waltham and the bus services, you cannot look at commercial bus services, because Stagecoach or National Express or any other big ones or little ones will not take that on as commercial. So it have to be a subsidised service by the council. So it's going to cost you a lot more than £15,000 a year if you can do it properly. The taxi share business is not really on. That is not a fair option to the people. You need a service that's going to run 7 days a week, and not every half hour, I think, but you can have to do some research. But you'd have to build into your revenue costs actually to provide a shuttle bus service, similar to got the leisure park, but obviously not that frequency. But that's the sort of system it would need, because at the moment, if you look at the crematorium, as Councillor Harvey's quite right pointing out, it's a struggle to get there. Monday to Friday or Saturday. There's no service at all on a Sunday. If you go down to a current cemetery, the place, on a nice day like this, there are plenty of people there paying their respects who do not drive. So I'm appealing, as somebody who doesn't drive, and quite a few of my constituents do not, and are elderly, please build a bus service, subsidised bus service, into your plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Richards.
Thank you. I think I can just repeat what I've said to Councillor Harvey and at the beginning of this, that I fully accept that transport and travelling to the site is an issue. It's come up in the public consultation, it's come up in the committee. I have taken that on board. The 15,000 is just a start, and I have given a commitment that we will continue to look at it. And as the years go on, if the cemetery is to go there, the transport will need to be continually reviewed, taking into account the changes to the borough and housing and things over time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richards, do you want to sum up, and then I'll ask other members if they've got any points to make?
I think really I'll just move the recommendation as per the order paper. I think I've made my points on transport and other sites within the meeting already.
Thank you, members. Do anybody else anything to add? Fine. In which case, I mean, I think I have really 2 points. One is that we have to recognise that this is not a solution for today. It's a solution for 5 years out. And therefore there is plenty of time to both consider the necessary options that one needs to mitigate the potential difficulties. I don't think anybody is suggesting that we would ever want to take people and dump them by the pond and make them walk down the country lanes to get to the cemetery. So there's plenty of time to resolve that issue. And I agree entirely, it does need to be resolved. People do need to have access to a cemetery where their loved ones are buried. And a bus is probably going to be the most likely solution to that rather than taxi share. Of course, what we don't know either is how the land will have been developed around it by that time as well. So we'll have to wait and see where that might take us. I think on the question of the use of money down, the really 2 points are, first of all, that the land was bought for housing, it wasn't bought for cemeteries. And that if there is good housing land there, given the need that we have for housing in the borough, it would be perhaps not the best use of good housing land to have it used for a cemetery, of which, you know, a large chunk of it would not actually be used for anything for a considerable length of time, because if you're looking at a 90-year period to fill it up, inevitably it would just be fallow land during that period. And it would be the case that we would have to pay, either directly or indirectly to the other shareholders, the market value for that land as housing land, which will be considerably more expensive than the land that we're talking about here for the provision of the cemetery. So on those two grounds, on value for money and on practicality, I think, whilst at the moment this might not be the best site, it certainly is one that we should be taking forward in parallel with the other ones, and we'll see where we get to in the future.
One more point, sorry, Leader. It's just because you mentioned the land being left fallow. It was just maybe worth mentioning that obviously it has got 90 years longevity, and we won't be using all the sites straight away if the planning application is successful. So we are looking at renting most of the site back to farmers before the site's developed. So we're not just leaving land for nothing, and we'll be generating an income.
Yeah, I think I was leaving it fallow as opposed to building on it, which is slightly different. So, are we happy with that? Good. Okay, so that is as per the revised decision notice, which we have published. And thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions. We'll now move on then to the next item on the agenda. Once I've found it, the temporary merger of the car parks, Alençon Link and Festival Place. I don't want to dwell long on this. This is a practical measure to enable the rebuilding of part of what is now the Festival Place car park, and to enable people using Festival Place to continue to park during the period whilst that is taking place. It has a side benefit that the cost of parking in Festival Place will reduce to that of the level of parking charges offered, I was going to say, but operated by the Borough Council, which is somewhat cheaper, as indeed, of course, the car parking charges operated by the Borough Council are significantly cheaper than most other towns in the area, particularly with our free parking right in the town centre, which I think is proving to be a great boon to the retailers at the top of the town. So unless anybody has any technical questions, which I trust you don't have on this, we agree? Yeah? Yes. Good, thank you. Then what I'm going to do now is, no, I'm not going to do, I'm going to move on to the next item, which is Community Infrastructure Levy. Councillor Raffel. Thank you very much. For the record, it should be noted that Councillor Austin has now left the room in accordance with her declaration of interest earlier on. I think this has been gone through in a great deal of detail, both at committee and elsewhere. I'm not sure that we have anything particular to add to the discussion if anybody else has any points. Just to note that there is a revised notice taking in the amended supplementary report under item little 4 on the decision notice. Other than that, we're agreed, I think. Yep, good. And we can ask Councillor Ostleton to return from eating the sandwiches or whatever.
Thank you.
She's sticking out there. Thank you. Welcome back. Right, we now move on to the Aldermaston Road Triangle site, Basingstoke, the proposed disposal. Now, this does contain a number of pink pages in detail on the bids submitted. At the moment, I don't feel any need to go into closed session to deal with this item, but if anybody does feel moved to raise any of the points that might touch on matters contained in those pink papers, could they let me know in advance, and then we will have to move to closed session. Other than that, I think this is a site which has been discussed for disposal a number of times in the past. It is appropriate that it should be developed because it sits there rather out of place with the other developments around it. It has been well marketed, and we've had a number of very interesting submissions. The one which is being recommended is, I think, by far the best one in terms of value for money and the mix of affordable and other housing, which is in accordance with our current policies. I therefore would propose that we endorse the recommendations as outlined in the decision notice for disposal. Agreed? Agreed. Good. Thank you very much. There being no other items and no matters for noting this time round, I now draw the meeting to a close at something like 6:57. Thank you.